Oh, I'm just having fun, spending time in the weather with my umbrella. Oh, hi! You got me playing with my umbrella. Hey, speaking of umbrellas, let's talk about the Umbrella Academy.
Comic tropes. Comic tropes.
Hello, welcome to Comic Tropes. I'm your host, Chris, and today I want to talk about the Umbrella Academy. Now, the story of its writer, Gerard Way, is nearly as interesting as the book itself. Gerard Way always intended to work in comics. He worked in a comic book store growing up, and he went to the School of Visual Arts in New York with the intention of being a writer and artist. But he actually got sidetracked with the massive success of his band, My Chemical Romance. Still, in 2007, he finally debuted a comic published through Dark Horse Comics with artist Gabriel Ba. It was a 6-issue series called The Umbrella Academy. And it was a big success that year. It was tremendously successful. It remains my personal favorite thing out of what Gerard Way has written. Now, I think that some of his later books, you could argue, are more personal or more refined. In fact, the Umbrella Academy's first arc, Apocalypse Suite, does have its flaws. Mainly, it's just jam-packed with tons of ideas, as though the writer was afraid he'd never get these ideas out again, and it nearly overwhelms the story. But the ideas are so cool. It's an amazing story. I want to break it down for you today, the first arc, Apocalypse Suite, as well as talk about some of the techniques of its creators. Let's get to it. Before we even get to the first page of story, we're introduced to our cast on the interior cover. The Umbrella Academy is comprised of 7 children, and we see them presented through the perspective of their adoptive father, Sir Reginald Hargreaves. He intentionally gives them numbers instead of names, ranked in his perceived usefulness. He calls number 1 his favorite and number 7 utterly useless. It's more than just an introduction to the main cast, though. It's a look at what Umbrella Academy is actually about. It's got weird superheroes, but fundamentally, the story is about a dysfunctional family. We later get a page that explains that 42 children were simultaneously born to women who had not been pregnant earlier that day. Sir Reginald Hargreaves adopts 7 of them to raise and tells the press it's to save the world, whereupon the family doesn't make public appearances for the next 10 years. Hargreaves, we're told, is an industrialist, an inventor, a billionaire, and a space alien. That space alien thing, by the way, doesn't really come into play in this story. So if you're the kind of person that gets bothered by ideas that are introduced in a story and don't pay off, Umbrella Academy may not be for you. Not everything pays off. But if you like stories that involve family drama, action, adventure, and just weird bonkers sci-fi ideas, let's keep going. The storytelling is that of an omniscient narrator who bounces back and forth between the various members of the Umbrella Academy. They include number 1, who has super strength, and Hargreaves appoints him as the team leader. He's very much in the mold of stoic team leaders like the X-Men Cyclops or Ninja Turtles Leonardo. He later takes the name Luther, but mostly goes by the superhero name Space Boy because of his fascination with outer space. At age 10, the team make their first public appearance, battling the Eiffel Tower, which has started to attack Paris. It ultimately blasts off into space, which apparently starts Space Boy's interest in outer space. Umbrella Academy makes you pay attention to background details, which include newspaper clippings that show he later sets up an outpost on the moon and tries to go on some mission to Mars, which goes horribly wrong, and Hargreaves saves his life by transplanting his head onto a Martian gorilla. It makes Space Boy withdraw because he sees himself as a monster. And he should see himself as a monster. He disgusts me. I'll cut that part out. So this is the kind of story where you just have Martian gorillas that exist in this world, but we're never really shown them or told anything further about them. One other interesting semi-related piece is that Sir Reginald Hargreaves has apparently taught monkeys and apes how to be more intelligent. There is a character in this book called Dr. Pogo. He is is a chimpanzee, a talking chimpanzee that dresses in clothes that is sort of an assistant for the team, but really he fulfills the role of surrogate father, in my opinion, because Sir Reginald Hargreaves just gives no love to these kids, and Dr. Pogo does. Regarding the rest of the team, number 2 is the Kraken. Described by Hargreaves as a brat, Kraken is probably the most traditionally superheroic in the sense that he always wears his outfit and domino mask and apparently uses his free time to go after crooks, as established when we see he has a relationship with the local police inspector that's very reminiscent of Batman and Commissioner Gordon's relationship. Kraken, also known as Diego, has superhuman accuracy with knives, can hold his breath indefinitely, and rebels against authority. He does not get along with Spaceboy and harbors an unrequited crush on number 7. He's reckless, and in the team's first adventure, he instantly kills a robot zombie Gustav Eiffel, who is controlling the tower, before the team can even make sense of what's going on. His recklessness is the only explanation we get for the fact that he's missing an eye when we meet him later as an adult. Number 3 goes by the superhero named The Rumor. She later goes by Allison, and when we meet her as an adult, she's divorced and has lost the custody of her daughter. Her power is that any lie she tells becomes true so long as it's possible. She and Spaceboy have a love that's unrequited due to his sense of duty and his shame over his looks. Number 4 goes by Seance, and he has the ability to communicate with the dead as well as telekinesis as long as he has his shoes off. He's moody and indulges in drugs, but is arguably the most grounded of the Academy and plays a quiet role of peacemaker. Number 5 never really gets a name other than Boy. Right before the team's adventure with the Eiffel Tower, he travels to the future at age 10 and learns that there will be an apocalypse 20 years after he leaves. He grows old in the future, having trouble finding a way back. Once he does, he goes back in time to warn about the apocalypse, but arrives just after Hargreaves dies and finds that he's permanently stuck in a 10-year-old body. Number 6 goes by The Horror and is also called Ben. We're told that he died in the past and it led to the Academy going their separate ways, but we never learn how he died or exactly when. Finally, number 7 goes by Vanya and is told by Hargreaves that she isn't special and apparently has no superhuman abilities. She wrote a tell-all book about the Academy, which further pushed her adoptive siblings away. She's said to be pretty good at the violin, and when the story begins, she's invited to play the lead violin for an orchestra comprised of killers, whose conductor has created a symphony said to bring about the apocalypse. You can probably see where some of this story is going. Basically, the book begins with Sir Reginald Hargreaves dying of a heart attack, seemingly just regular old age, and that brings the family back together. But this is a dysfunctional family that grew up without love and attention, and they don't really know how to help each other. So instead, you find them at cross purposes, butting heads, and almost escalating situations worse than they should be. It's very interesting seeing these dynamics because each of the characters definitely exhibits growth and ends up in a different place than they did before. The Umbrella Academy definitely changes. Umbrellas. You know, we only use umbrellas when it rains. You never see somebody using an umbrella to protect themselves from the night. Oh no, you do see people use umbrellas to protect themselves from the sun. Never mind. Director J.J. Abrams once coined the term mystery box for how he likes to sculpt his stories in film and television, introducing ideas that can be paid off later. Umbrella Academy introduces plenty of these mystery boxes, but many of them are red herrings that lead nowhere. Is it important that Hargreaves was an alien? Seemingly not. How about the way in which the horror was killed? It doesn't factor into this story, but some ideas do pay off. In the sequel story to Apocalypse Suite called Dallas, we learn how number 5 went back in time, having signed up to work with an agency that polices time. He doesn't fulfill his obligations, and the agency sends killers Cha-Cha and Hazel after him. Vanya is revealed to have abilities, which isn't a huge twist, but the idea is seeded early and pays off. One of the big selling points for Umbrella Academy is the artwork by Gabriel Ba. Ba is a Brazilian artist, and he and his twin brother Fabian have been working on comics since 1993, beginning with self-published ventures. His work is angular, energetic, expressive, and deals with heavy shadows. His line work is open and flowing, which provides a great contrast with his thick shadows, but is especially brilliant with Dave Stewart's colors. I think the artwork and the colors really suit this story. I think that if this book was presented with more traditional, super realistic artwork, it wouldn't necessarily have the same punch. You sort of need that cartoony style to help show how bizarre and weird this world is. You need a contrast, and I think that this artwork provides it. And the artwork has sharp lines, there's angles and stuff to it, and I think that that helps sort of work in terms of how these characters react emotionally. They walk on broken glass with each other. They're always butting heads, they're broken people. So I think that the artwork really suits this story. Of course, the story is driven by its writer, Gerard Way, and Gerard was probably always going to end up working in comics, but when the book came out in 2007 through 2008, it shocked people. At that point, Way was very well known as the frontman for My Chemical Romance. People didn't know about him working in a comic book store or attending the School of Visual Arts. So it was very much a surprise that this celebrity all of a sudden debuts a comic book that felt so fully realized and well-paced. In fact, the book won the 2008 Eisner for Best Limited Series. In retrospect, it makes sense, but it was a surprise at the time. Now he's gone on to write several series at both Dark Horse and DC, including a run on Doom Patrol that I touched on last week. Technically, however, Umbrella Academy was not Gerard Way's first comic book. Dark Horse promoted it as such, but as a 16-year-old, he had 2 issues of a comic called On Raven's Wings published by indie publisher Boneyard Press. And its founder, Hart Fisher, is still upset that Dark Horse and Way promoted Umbrella Academy as his first book. Maybe Dark Horse should have equivocated and said first mainstream work or first writing as an adult. I don't know, but Fisher is well known for fighting free speech lawsuits over his 1992 comic about Jeffrey Dahmer, and I can understand where he's coming from. He gave a 16-year-old a shot who later became a superstar. But I also don't think it would be fair to say that his comic from 14 years before Umbrella Academy helped establish Gerard Way in any meaningful way. Way and Ba reunited for a second Umbrella Academy story, Dallas, the following year, and just this year have so far published 5 of the 6 planned issues of their third story, Hotel Oblivion. A live-action adaptation debuts this week on Netflix. Umbrella Academy has a lot of potential as a TV series. The superheroics and the science fiction are great, but they're essentially elaborate window dressing because at the core of the story is a family drama, and obviously those work very well on TV where you can get to know the characters in a much more intimate way and have their relationships pay off in more dramatic ways. So I think it has a lot of potential in that medium. I recently reread the story for this review, having not read it since 2008, and I think it holds up very well. I remember being mildly frustrated originally at all these ideas that didn't necessarily pay off. But now I know where the story's going, and I don't know, the ideas are so cool. There's an idea of a supervillain that they have, the Umbrella Academy has fought, called Dr. Terminus, and he feeds his cancer by causing pain in others. So that's just an interesting idea that never really gets deeply explored, but is a really interesting idea. The book is full of those ideas. Ideas that you wish, well, spend a few more issues on that. Instead, it's a very condensed story. It introduces the ideas, but it doesn't delve down with too many subplots. It really focuses directly on the family. I always thought that the story might have worked better if we followed Vanya as the main character and then sort of learned about the world around her. She's a great viewpoint character, having no superpowers. You know, she's very much us in that regard. But instead, this storyline is omniscient. It just jumps around from character to character and introduces all sorts of ideas, and you never know which ones will pay off and which ones are just there to set the scene. So that's actually kind of fun to discover which ones do pay off. I think that the sequel, by the way, Dallas, is also a good read. It starts off a little choppy, a little confusing, but some of that is due to the fact that that's a non-linear story. And after that, it really gets going, and it actually does pay off several dangling plot ideas from the first arc, Apocalypse Suite. So they work very well together. I definitely give it a recommend, but I'm very curious to hear what you think about the comic and eventually the Netflix TV adaptation. All right, with that said, let's take a look at what fan art came in this week. Kevin Elias shows us what it would look like if I took over for Lady Cop. Gee, thanks, Kevin. And Kevin's daughter Isabella created this amazing piece featuring me as Spider-Man, and I love it. Christian Swarat provides this cool artwork of me as one of the teleporting mutants from Chuck Austin's X-Men run. Yitzhak Starker says he recently rewatched my second Rob Liefeld critique and was inspired to make this artwork. Brilliant. Aaron Lee sends in this portrait that he says he made with alcohol markers. Those are very fun to play with. I love it, Aaron. Anthony Salinas sends in a piece that he says he did as a speed painting, envisioning me with the Venom symbiote. Very cool. And finally, Joseph Freestuhler sends in a piece based off of the Jack Kirby image on my backdrop. Brilliant. Every week I feature artwork that has to do directly with comic tropes, so if you'd like to submit something, just send it to comictropes@gmail.com. I will feature it, and then I will draw one winner that will win a Gachapon prize that I picked up in Japan. By the way, they come out of the Gachapony machine, which was donated to us by Lunar Shine Store. So, 7 entrants. I've got 7 pieces of paper. I'm just going to drop them in a bag here, shake it up, and somebody's going to win. It is number 6, and that was Anthony Salinas. Anthony, let's see what you won. All right. Love that sound. Oh, we almost got it. Come on, come on. All right. It looks like it's a character from One Punch Man. I'm not 100% sure who that is, but it's somebody from One Punch Man. That's a pretty funny manga and anime. I'll send that your way as soon as I get your address, Anthony. I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for hitting like and subscribe, for sharing. Remember, I've got a Facebook page, a Twitter, I've got a Patreon. More than welcome to stop there. I have a few nice little bonuses there from time to time. And I just really appreciate the support. The channel's growing very quickly. That's all thanks to you. And I couldn't be more grateful. It's really, really amazing. All right. Next week, I'm going to also talk about a comic that sort of has something to do with an upcoming streaming series that's adapted from a comic book. All right. I'll just tell you. The series I'm talking about is The Boys, but I'm not going to review The Boys next week. I'm going to review a comic that I think was The Boys before The Boys was ever published. So that's a little hint as to what's coming next week. I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading comics.